It was supposed to be a normal Friday evening at the office party, a semi-formal gathering with a few drinks, laughter, and the kind of harmless camaraderie that made the week's stress melt away. I had agreed to come mainly because she insisted. My wife, always the social butterfly, had been unusually insistent that I join her this time. "It'll be fun," she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, her eyes sparkling with that mischievous glint I thought I knew so well. I had my doubts, but I went anyway, partly out of curiosity, partly out of the unspoken need to keep peace. As we entered the room, the chatter dimmed slightly, colleagues in cocktail dresses and suits glanced our way. I could sense her excitement. She thrived on attention, and tonight, I quickly realized, she had a plan. Within minutes, I noticed the way she leaned closer to certain coworkers, her laugh a decibel louder, her gaze deliberately sweeping over the room. That's when I saw him, the target. He was tall, charming, the kind of man who always seemed effortlessly charismatic. And my wife had chosen him as her prey tonight. She approached him with the kind of confidence that could disarm a politician, her smile sharp, deliberate, calculated. My stomach sank slightly, but I stayed back, observing. I wasn't about to make a scene, I wanted to see how far she would go. "Hey, I didn't know you liked that kind of wine," she said, leaning closer than necessary, her hand brushing his arm with a feigned accidental touch. I could hear the slight hitch in his voice, the warmth of surprise, maybe even a flicker of amusement. She laughed, that perfect, airy laugh, one that had the room subtly noticing. People turned slightly, curious about the interaction, whispers floating through the crowd like a breeze carrying tension. My mind raced. I could confront her, call out the audacity in front of everyone, but I wanted the impact to be perfect. This wasn't about revenge, it was about revelation. About silence and subtle power. So I waited, letting the moment stretch, savoring the anticipation of what I was about to do. She continued, leaning closer, her hand now resting a bit too long on his shoulder. Her voice lowered, intimate enough for others to catch fragments of the conversation. "I've always admired someone like you," she whispered, so confident, so interesting. I saw the gleam in his eyes, a mix of flattery and curiosity, the dangerous spark of mutual attraction igniting. That was it, the moment I had been waiting for. I stepped forward slowly, letting the room sense my presence without a word. Heads turned, glasses paused mid-air, conversations faltered. She looked up, expecting perhaps surprise, maybe even embarrassment on my part. Instead, I smiled, calm, composed, almost serene. A smile that whispered I saw everything, yet did not panic. Then, I took her hand, not in confrontation, not in anger, but with a gentle firmness that made everyone around us stop and stare. The flirtation ceased instantly. The man froze, caught between politeness and confusion. She tried to pull back, a faint flush rising on her cheeks, the confidence draining like water through a sieve. The room felt suddenly smaller, the air thicker, charged with silent electricity. "I think it's time we dance," I said softly, guiding her toward the center of the room. The words were innocent, almost playful, but they carried a weight that silenced the whispers and the chuckles. The flirt, the plan, the carefully crafted allure, it all dissolved in the simplest of actions. Everyone watched as she, my wife, who had thought she could command attention, was now the one under the quiet scrutiny of the room. We danced slowly, my hand firm around hers, my eyes meeting hers with a calm intensity that left no room for mischief. She tried to regain control with a smile, a coy tilt of her head, but it was too late. The power had shifted. Colleagues watched in stunned silence, unsure whether they had witnessed a romantic gesture or a subtle lesson in humility. The man she had targeted cleared his throat awkwardly, stepping back, unsure of where to go or what to say. I didn't need to say a word to him, my presence, my quiet confidence, did all the speaking. And as the dance continued, my wife's demeanor softened, the flirtation replaced by a kind of awareness, a realization that not all games end the way you plan. By the time the music shifted to something livelier, the room had settled back into chatter, but the memory of that brief pause, the pause my simple action had created, lingered in the air. I had made no scene, uttered no threats, yet I had changed the narrative completely. She had tried to assert herself, to command attention, to manipulate perception, but she had forgotten one thing: subtlety could overpower arrogance in ways words could not. When the song ended, we stepped off the floor. She avoided my gaze for a moment, then finally looked up, eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and perhaps a trace of respect. I didn't say anything. There was no need. The silence spoke volumes. She had been reminded, gently but firmly, that attention cannot be forced, that control is only an illusion when it's built on manipulation. The rest of the evening passed without incident. I watched her interact, noting the careful restraint she now exhibited, the absence of overt flirtation. She understood the unspoken message: the power she had sought to wield had been gracefully redirected. I didn't gloat. I didn't scold. I simply existed as a quiet reminder that some lessons are best learned without drama, through presence, patience, and subtle mastery of the moment. By the time we left, the office party had returned to normal rhythm, people laughing, sharing drinks, the evening winding down. But the memory of that single, silent, commanding moment lingered. I held her hand as we walked to the car, and for the first time in a long while, there was no tension, no games, no pretense, just the quiet acknowledgement that sometimes, the strongest impact comes not from raising your voice, but from maintaining composure when everyone else is watching. And as we drove home, I felt an odd sense of satisfaction, not from embarrassment inflicted, not from power asserted, but from clarity restored. In the end, she had learned something invaluable, and I had proven, silently, that presence, confidence, and patience can speak louder than any words.